Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another edition of our fortnightly IRENA Insights webinar series. My name is Martina Lyons, and I'm from the IRENA Innovation and Technology Center in Bonn, Germany. Before we start, I would like to ask you if you can let me know that you can see the screen in the question feature, chat, or wherever. So we are sure that you can see what we see. Okay, I think it's okay. So anyway, for those, yes, you can see, fantastic. Thank you so much. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, let me introduce you to IRENA and to our webinar series. IRENA is an intergovernmental organization. We have currently 167 member countries, and then we have another 17 countries in their accession process. And we support countries in their transition to a sustainable energy future. We serve as the principal platform for international cooperation, a center of excellence, a repository of policy, technology, resource, and financial knowledge on renewable energy. And since our analytical work and also our engagement with our member countries generates a lot of valuable insights, we are constantly looking for different ways and more ways how to share those insights with you. And that is also why we launched this fortnightly IRENA webinar series. So we run this series every other week, usually on Tuesdays. We started in 2020 in January before the pandemic proliferated many virtual events. And so far we organized over 30 webinars. And you can check all of them on our IRENA events website. The link is will be also at the end of the presentation slides. There are slides and recording for each of them. While we appreciate that there are many other long deep dive webinars out there, but what we are trying to do here is on contrary, to keep this webinar short. So this webinar lasts approximately 30 minutes, which means that we clearly cannot cover everything, but the idea is to give you enough to decide whether you actually want to delve deeper into the topic. And we signpost in our presentation further sources of more in-depth information to help you to do that. So today, while you enjoy your coffee, tea, or bagel, in the next 30 minutes or so, we will hear from Yong Chen. Next slide, please. Yong leads the Sustainable Urban Energy team, and his work focuses on the decarbonization of the cities. Today, he will share with us key takeaways from the recent IRENA report, which he authored and which is called Sector Coupling in Facilitating the Integration of Variable Renewable Energy in Cities. But before I hand over microphone to Yong, just very briefly, a few usual housekeeping items, which you certainly are all aware from all other online events. So we are recording the webinar, and we will post both the recording and the slides on IRENA events website within the next 48 hours. You are all on mute. If you have questions for us, use the Q&A function, and don't forget to give us feedback in the short survey, which will be available after the webinar. And now, without any further ado, let me welcome Yong. Yong, over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Martina. That's just for the kind introduction, and also set briefly the scene for this webinar. And it's really my pleasure and to share a few things and from our side in terms of the knowledge around sector coupling and facilitating the integration of variable renewables in cities. I would just a quick, because a quick, how to say, reflection and about, and probably for those who do not understand how the IRENA works, why we get into this the city space, because as Martina just mentioned, that IRENA is an intergovernmental organization working with countries, basically on central government, federal government. And so the cities, why we get into the city. I think this is the fundamentally, I think you can see the change of global energy transition dynamics, and from actually, and the policies, target setting, especially from Paris Agreement. And after that, you can see the city's role and has been elevated. And in the sense, if action need to be taken and taken fast, and more at the greater magnitude, and the cities have to be involved. So I think this is the real context. So why actually IRENA and expand with the work stream in this space? The city will engage with the municipalities, with the people actually, and within the multi stakeholders, and in cities, trying to understand, how actually it's very complex. How to understand how can decarbonize their energy system while not interrupting, their day-to-day life. So this is a very challenging, and also there's from the investor perspective, they are also very interested in how actually the next version or next generation of urban infrastructure development. So there's this huge actually interest and also potential to actually transform the urban energy system. So sector coupling is one of those actually opportunities I would say in future, and the cities can tap into. Next slide, please. So back, this is to give you a little broader picture. So why city is important from energy perspective. This is and for those you now really closely following what's the urbanization process. Here we can see this is right now is more than half of the world population living in cities, and so from the last half century, the urbanizations, the urban population has been quadrupled. So this is the rapid urbanization, and it'll continue. It will continue until 2050, and estimated that the UN to reach roughly around 67% of the world population live in cities. So currently, cities, because they are very active, activities, economic activities, industrial activities, all kinds of actually energy intensive or energy consumptions in the city. So this is to contribute to roughly, and also the final energy and also the emission, carbon emission, roughly around 3/4 of the global. So this is it's going to be increasing, and over time, next till 2050. The reason why for that is because as the urbanization is growing, and they are going to expect about 2.5 billion people moving to the cities. So there's 90% come from Asia and Africa. So that means those areas, they are rural area, their energy consumption, overall energy consumption is very low. So that is going to, we can have seen quite dramatic increase in energy consumption and demand if we don't take measures and action right now to manage their first energy, how actually make sure that they use energy efficient equipment, everything, and also this is how actually can power those are the urbanizations in those countries, and trying to bypass the fossil fuel pathways and sort of leapfrogging, thinking. So that is the overall in picture. And from our analysis, you can see this picture. This chart can show you this is from our world energy outlook and 2021 version, I think. So to tell you actually, in order to reach net zero, and by the middle century, and how actually by sector the energy, the emission reduction should look like. So that's, you can see those, the transport and the building and the industry, those three closely linked to the cities. So they actually contribute roughly 60% of the energy for the emission reduction over the next 30 years. So it doesn't mean this all, of course, the 60% all come from the cities, because some transport allocate to and rurals, but overall, they are contributing quite a big major share of energy emission reduction potentials. So, and power heating as well. This is not, so this is the reason, the context why the city is becoming more and more relevant to the climate change, and is going to also to play a very important role actually to take actions to reduce the global carbon emission in the future. Next slide, please. So why energy system flexibility is crucial in the future? That's why the flexibility, because this is all about the sector coupling, actually increase the flexibility. And currently, if you look at this also based on the VTO analysis, and we see by 2050, variable renewables like solar and wind, those are, and it's a little bit more affected by the weather, and they contribution to the output, electricity output production is about 63%, and the capacity, installed capacity, 74%. This is over analysis. So only can reach that. That's we can see, and this is part we can reach to the 1.5 scenario, or net zero by the middle century. So this is a big jump from currently in the 10% roughly. You can see this is from output. So what does it mean? That's just can we, the current power system can handle this? Can we really accommodate and operate reliably and stable operation when we have such high share of variable renewables? So how can we manage the grid? I think this comes question about the flexibilities. And next slide, please. So why sector coupling is helpful, I mean, to address this flexibility and issues, because few words, this is, this is flexibility is nothing new, and the power system, current power system, and historically as well, and managing this kind of variations of demand and yearly actually adjust, the supply side. So that is the current system, how to design. So the flexibility is nothing new, but it's what's new is that we have to expand the spectrum, actually how we manage the system, because on the supply side, that's when it's the variable renewables higher and enough, then we have to consider and how we probably don't have so much options to control that, and option on the supply side. So this is on demand side, the flexibility. Currently, we're talking about here and the use sector in the cities. This is becoming more and more important. So currently, it seems we add the pump storage, we add the energy storage, and we on the supply on the source, and we can also convert this into hydrogen. Those are with some option right now. It's that's large scale, and this probably is the most sensible way to go ahead currently, but depends on your system. So if your power system is small island, I don't see, probably most likely this is it's going to be fine with that. So you don't need proper sector coupling type, and unless you really want to, because that's also you have balance and optimization, but you don't have to because this is small. But if a big system and on the supply side and the energy production side, it's some point you reach the point that can be properly cost prohibitive. Then you have to to see what's the demand side and how can I make it more flexible. And so this is a sector coupling, and it comes to more play more roles. So what we talk about here, sector coupling is basically the linked to different sectors, especially the power sector to the sectors traditionally not their energy needs are not met by power. So that is the essential meaning concept of the sector coupling. There's no universal definition on sector coupling. Is different people have different views right now currently and definition, and we IRENA as we just take it very quite basic. This is the process into linking actually power sector with the other energy sectors. You can for enlarged use of a renewable electricity. So this is over current definition. But if you look into it from how actually the concept evolved over time, and the term is coined by German, and when they say, okay, we are doing quite well on the renewable electricity, but actually on the non-power sector, and we got quite lagging behind. So that's how we can couple those two, and this is the decarbonize the other sectors. And at the same time, this is when you increase too much and too fast renewable installations and in the power sector, and currently is managing more or less is better globally. But if you go back to a few years, 4 or 5 years, this is the curtailment is still an issue. So they have to, if it's too much, they cannot handle, then you have to curtail. So that's basically is how to use those excessive electricity and surplus and to decarbonize to be used by the other sectors. So that's not traditionally use electricity as their energy source. So this is the concept. But gradually, you can see this is come to the flexibility, because the way it works, that's actually can create a buffer, and from the power sector, in the power sector, and by linking with other non-power sector, create a buffer and between the supply and demand. And so that is the essential, because this is the way it gave us more tools to manage the system, not only the supply side, that's the conventional. Before we just manage the supply side, but now the supply side getting more and more difficult for us to manage. So that's the demand side. We have to actually to manage and more effectively and at a broader scope, because we'll talk about later on, because those are the demand side management is not something new. We have been dealing with those things for decades, if not centuries. So this is to make sure the goal is still the same. Make sure the energy power system is more reliable and stable and affordable. And go ahead, next slide, please. And so this is how the city help. This is the convention. This is on the energy sector. So sector coupling can happen in the supply side. So what I'm talking here is the demand side. And on the demand side, the conventional, there's a way in terms of flexibility, and there's a conventional approach and the method we have actually from the power operation perspective. We can use and basically reduce the peak, and the load shedding, shifting, those are the demand responses until you time of use as the regulatory approach to manage demand, and those are still quite useful. And but those are the sort of conventional approach. But now we expand actually the spectrum of options by integrating the other other technologies, like EVs and power to heat, power to gas. Those are the new options actually right now we can use. Why we use that? Because in a conventional approach, basically the goal is trying to bring the peak basically down to average load. That is you manage. That is because of from the cost saving, and also of course the operational safety perspective as well. So this is the what we go. But now is with new sector coupling technology and the strategy for the power system operation. Basically, we focus on that's how we can regulate the demand and to meet and to match the supply, the variations of a power supply from the variable renewables. So that's if we can match actually demand curve and to supply curve. And that is something ideal for us. So that is the most cost effective. So this is something, and the sector coupling play a more important role in this context. So and that the key is the system and the interoperational abilities. So that's the key. This is how can you make the system two different systems and can be interoperational. And physical is one part, and you deal with those electrons and other molecules or whatever the services mean. The second is that the regulatory framework. What's the interface between those systems. How can you make the pricing right? Otherwise, people won't properly use those technologies. So the real, because they're simply more expensive. And so this is something you need to look into carefully when you design the system. So just two examples here is smart charging, and EV is going up. Adoption of EV is going to increase dramatically right now already, but also this is even more so and down the road. And so this is something we need how to design the system, and also on the thermal energy storage as for heating, especially for buildings. And so this is going to be also the important, those two important technologies for secular coupling and in cities. Next slide, please. So there's an interconnected system through coupling, secular coupling technologies, and as I mentioned, this is the system interconnection. This I want to highlight the two things. One is the interconnect systems and can increase the efficiency of the system operation, and that's the overall efficiency. And because of some ideal, something you cannot use, now you can use it. So that's the increased efficiency, but only if we can manage in the smart, intelligent way. That's the operational perspective. So we need to monitor, we need to have a smart system to operate. Otherwise, you can get probably bigger trouble, because basically you solve one problem by creating another one. So that's what we don't want to see. If everybody charging at the same time, and the grid is going to be a problem. So this is a very simple question. Next slide, please. So what we do at the IRENA, and this is the concept, then we to how to address this problem. This is we look actually the tools and currently modeling tools for urban energy system planning, and we roughly go through roughly around 100 tools, different, collect and evaluate them to check how actually they take renewables and whether or not if at all. And then how actually they look at the secular coupling technology integrated at that time. You can finally we gone through, this is about roughly around 18 tools. This is highly used by the cities, and based on this kind of review, and we design actually develop our own tools, and more focus on renewables, and especially from the perspective, from the approach, that is how actually make the demand can follow the supply, the variables. So that is the initial step, the initial concept of how we design this tool. So it's planning platform for cities. And next slide, please. So I don't want to get into the very detailed technical part, but this is just the overall this methodology how we develop. This is we take into the climate data. This is all very detailed weather data profiles, and then buildings and well transportations, and then we match with our renewable resources, local renewable resources, and also different technologies in between. So this is optimization model. So this is a very sort of for a different context, you can come up with different optimized options, and for technology and also for operational strategies. So this is a very I would say the classic way actually to do this approach. Go ahead, next slide, please. So this also this is show a little key element about these tools. So it's modular, this is and we I don't want to get into too much details of how actually this is one thing I want to emphasize is that this tool how develop this plug in with energy supply, energy plus. So that is as to estimate the energy and demand and from the building sector. So this is one thing. But right now, I think this is it's if you Unreal recently launched, they also they open up actually the supply energy plus and the ecosystem, so that actually allow more users to more conveniently actually use the energy plus. So this is something, and if you want to look into OR2, and also this is keep in mind, there's also, and IRENA, they also have something right now, energy plus, and new development in terms of feature and functionalities can be helpful. And next slide, please. So this is the overall, and we overall the city's its capacity is for long-term, strategy is basically to evaluate the trade-offs, is quantitative, and the multi energy system and sectors, especially focusing on the sector coupling, and also that going to be online. Right now, we're refining these tools and to make it online more user friendly. Next slide, please. And yeah, this is just a case study we have done in for Chongli. That's actually one of the skiing site for Winter Olympics in Beijing. We help them to evaluate the system, to identify and how actually and they can reach the carbon 100% renewables to power their system. And the sector coupling plays a very important role. But the one thing I want to emphasize here is the energy efficiency, which I didn't mention actually at the beginning. This is for renewable sector coupling, especially taking advantage of renewables. One thing that's very important is that you need a system and more energy efficient first, and especially building the envelope for the performance. Energy performance of energies, so you make that first. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense when we get the renewables, and then on the other side you waste a lot of energy. And for this study, we have identified and electricity surplus from renewable, wind and solar, and to provide heating. And also for transportation, we develop also two options: the electrification and also hydrogen as well. And so for powered hydrogen for different use, I say, this is a great flexibility is one thing, because this you can use it later on hydrogen. But second is also this is for cold climate and the vehicles, fuel cells and hydrogen based on fuel cells that can perform a little better compared to the battery. But the battery technology right now is also improving. So I think that I overrun a little bit time. I think that's the last slide. And now I'll hand over to Martina and for Q&A session. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Yong. Very insightful, and particularly the online platform seems very hands-on. We're kind of running out of time, so let's just take one, maximum 2 questions. If you have more, you can always reach out to us. Yong, the question. Recognizing that about 2/3 of our energy goes to waste heat, don't cities offer great opportunity to more fully utilize heat by daisy chaining processes together from high to low temperatures? Does utilize heat at every level?
Yeah, and I think that's a very good question. I think there's a lot of going on actually in this sector, and decarbon, as you know, the decarbonizing heat sector is a big challenge. It's a big potential and a big challenge as well globally. And one using the waste heat is absolutely no-brainer. But I think the question is, the temperature is one thing. Right now, it's trying to use a lower temperature. You can use waste heat, but also you can use renewable and other renewable energy as a heat source. So that's multiple source. This is, I think, probably going to be the same. And so you, of course, the infrastructure. Some infrastructure need to modify a little bit, and there's a new concept, and the ectogrid, for example, that's from Iran, and the company that's developed, and this is a low temperature grid. This is we also call this 5th generation of this reheating grid. So this is one way to go. The reason why I emphasize there's the property, it makes sense to have this multiple source is that the waste heat. One of the biggest problem is that because usually there's a big source, so this you need a district heating and the system. So the problem is that what if the heat is gone? And so this is so what about my investment? that's sort of a challenge. This is circular, it's the economy, but there's a risk embedded. So this is why I think this is currently in this direction you use waste heat, but also this is the multiple source. So make sure that if something goes wrong with one source, you are still fine with your investment, especially from the network, the thermal network operator perspective.
Thank you, Yonk. Quick question is about the IRENA tool you mentioned. If you can a little bit elaborate on what are the specifics of it and if it incorporates other tools as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. This is why I call it the platform. So it's not called the platform. The reason why is we want that actually and serve as a platform that you can plug in others, and you can usually develop a API. You can use that to link with other tools, and because we fundamentally see cities is crucial, but is linked with other systems, and within the city different like transportation. So you need to model that as well. So you need as an input, and the buildings, this energy supply, energy plus, those are the and also of course the power. So that's the platform. So the beauty of that design is that they provide the platform, and then the other tools can can be integrated or linked together, including our own and other tools at the IRENA. So this is also because this is our strength, our expertise on focus on renewable. So as you know, we develop a large number of very powerful tools. So those are also can be used and with some modification to city level. So this is we're going to integrate more and more. So right now it's still in the process of improving towards this direction.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, our 30 minutes is coming to a close. So I would like to thank you, Yonk, for your time and for sharing with us your knowledge and your experience in sector coupling and in cities. And I would like to thank you all for joining us today, for listening, for your questions. We hope very much that you learned something new. And what comes next? We are planning already a series of other webinars. So next webinar is on 22nd of February. It will be about decarbonization of shipping industry, and it will be followed by 2 other webinars in March on patents and standards for renewable energy and on geopolitics with a special focus on hydrogen. You can already register. The registration is open, and you can find the registration link on the IRENA event website, which is on the slide in front of you. We look forward to seeing you in those webinars again soon. So that is all from us for today. We wish you a great rest of the day. Again, thank you, Yonk. Thank you, all of you. Goodbye and see you soon.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.